award is in recognition of the nomination in the category of Outstanding Pastry Chef Baker on behalf of the 2018 Garden State Culinary Arts Award. Don uses the extreme craft at Engage Grain of Garwood on North Avenue, where fresh breads are made daily from a selection of essential ingredients with personal intents to give them to each loaf to ensure the final product be as perfect as it can be. He is truly an artist in the culinary field. Wishing all the best in the future. Mayor Lombardo Garwood. Thank you.
I'm really here, but I just I thank Garwood for providing a home for us, and I really try and put Garwood on the map, give people a reason to come, and know that there's good bread and food besides New York and everywhere else, and put our small town on the map.
I must admit, it's always full.
No, thank you very much.
Sarah, is Mr. Disco coming this evening?
No, he's not.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Renat, do you have anything for this evening?
I did an ordinance yesterday. I'm trying to remember what it's about.
To eliminate the raffle license, they have that in front of them.
All right, okay, so yes, I wanted to ask you about that. So I did this raffle license ordinance to delegate the issuing authority to the municipal clerk.
Okay.
So if you're so inclined, you can introduce that next meeting. That was requested of me the last meeting.
Any comments on it?
It was unanimous out of laws and license.
All right, very good.
I support it. I think it streamlines things a little bit, which we're always looking to do.
Very good. Okay, so Ms. Ariane, would you put on the agenda? Thank you.
Julie, another question I have is there any other towns I could look into as a reference that do this already?
Did we discuss this last time?
It's
If I
started,
did, I may have missed it, so I apologize.
started with another town telling me, but I honestly can't
Scotch
remember.
Plains.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
Scotch
All right.
Plains.
That's where
Just something so I can review in the next couple of weeks
I got
before
the
it's
idea
introduced.
from that.
Cool, thank you.
Well,
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Villan?
Well, I can think of right now, man.
Okay. Ms. Ariane, do you have anything for this evening?
I know it's what they are.
Okay, any unfinished business for council? Any new business? I have a mayor's report this evening. As your mayor, I'll be joining 14 other mayors across Union County on April 11th in support of the Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and have signed on March 30th, 2018, their statement of principle, because as your mayor, I am duty bound to everything in my power to protect our residents, especially our children, from harm, and there is no greater threat to the public than the threat of illegal guns. I wholeheartedly support common sense gun laws and policies that keep illegal guns out of the wrong hands. As discussed at the previous council meeting, I have met with the mayor of Fanwood, and we both agree in principle that we should move forward towards another 3 years with our current shared service agreement. We both would like the council committees to enhance the shared service agreement by adding street sweepings as suggested. Mayor Marr and I will meet again before the final agreement is signed. Union County is pleased to announce that new CPR training classes will be conducted by emergency medical technicians from Union County Emergency Medical Services. All classes will be open to the general public, and the program is free, with participants only paying for the course materials of $23.75, which includes all the materials and certification card. All classes will be held in Union County Emergency Service Building at 535 Laurel Avenue, Roselle Park. Any questions, please call 908-654-9881 and ask for Sergeant Camara. The classes are Sunday, April 15th, 12:30 to 5, Tuesday, April 17th, 6 to 10 p.m., Saturday, April 28th, 9 to 1:30 p.m. Elizabethtown Gas Pipeline Replacement Project. This project is to replace and upgrade natural gas service by replacing aging main pipes for material that is more durable and less to maintain. Also, relocating gas meters from inside homes and businesses to outside, and to replacing service lines from the main street to premises. Portions of the streets that will be directly affected will be Anchor Place, Winslow Place, Spruce Avenue, 3rd Avenue, and North Avenue. The hotline number is 866-767-5558. And just a side note, I did call the number. It's a good number, so you can use it anytime. At this time, I'd like to recognize the month of April 2018 as National Autism Month. The first National Autism Month was dedicated by Autism Society in 1970. This month is dedicated to educate the public about autism as a complex mental condition with developmental disabilities characterized by difficulties in the way a person communicates and interacts with other people. As part of the upgrade at Garwood's Hartman Park, we have included sanitary family equipment for each needs of autism and other mental disorders. An update on Russo 1. I've been in discussion with Chris Binks of Russo Development for the following. The drive-in bank and the private home near the South Avenue corner of near West will be coming down in approximately 1 month. I'm trying to secure a gate out of the parking area near the firehouse for safety reasons and accessibility for the seniors. Finally, I'm negotiating to have a town hall meeting for our residents before the actual construction of the project starts. As a side note, I will be on vacation from April 13th to the 23rd. Department heads will be notified, and without that time, I will be available for emergency communications with the borough as needed. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to comments or matters for discussion from members of council. Council President Blumenstock.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually just reminded of something when you spoke about the illegal guns. A couple weeks ago, we had spoken about doing a meeting between the mayor and superintendent and the police chief about school safety open to parents. Can I ask if we have any updates on that?
Basically, I did speak to the chief of police, who's in contact with the superintendent, and they felt that that would be better appropriately done at a school board meeting as a general presentation. I think some of the council members, even yourself, we tried to attend that meeting, and the company did not show up. So there's not going to be a meeting just for the 3 individuals. It'll just be the school board will handle that.
Are they going to advertise anything as like
I assume they were. They did advertise the meeting that was supposed to be there. I'll reach out to them and find out.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, no, sorry,
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Kukrow.
Thank you, Mayor. We have previously spoken about updating the property maintenance code and how the Laws and License Committee agrees with having the mayor and council be the arbiter for appeals if anyone brings one forward. An email was sent after the last council meeting about the possibility of looking at another municipal code for guidance. Laws and License discussed this, and we unanimously decided to ask Bob to move forward with preparing this ordinance as we have previously discussed with the International Property Maintenance Code, which is a code that is being used throughout the country. This way the full council can review it.
And I'll have that for you shortly. I understand that they wanted to go ahead with it the way that we had done it, except with the mayor and council, so.
And we're okay on that.
Barring unforeseen difficulties, I'll have it before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else? No. Thank you. Councilman Lazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items. I had Tina today send out an ordinance that I had emailed to you guys, and you also had a paper copy of it that restricts pet stores from buying or selling cats or dogs, with the exception of animal care facilities or animal rescue organizations, to offer space for stores to showcase adoptable dogs and cats. As seen in the report crafted by the Humane Society, puppy mills and other reckless business practices have been used to produce, buy, and sell ill-treated cats and dogs with serious ailments. The ordinance was crafted by lawyers at the Humane Society. Also be aware that this ordinance was passed by 120 municipalities in our state and over 250 times across the country. 6 Union County towns are among the 120 in New Jersey to have passed it, including Fanwood, Scotch Plains, Roselle Park, Springfield, Cranford, and Rahway. Westfield's going to be voting on this tonight, and Kenilworth is currently considering it. Last December, California made this state law, and Pennsylvania and Maryland are considering it right now. So I just kind of wanted to bring this up to the council for, to consider whether or not this is something that we would like to pursue, or do you prefer putting this to laws and license to have a more closer look? So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Wherever you're gonna put it, I would put it forward. I don't care where you put it, so.
Well, I think, as the councilman said, we're gonna push it forward, we don't have to put it in any committee. So do we
I'm
have-
happy to take it laws and license.
I would prefer.
Yep.
You would prefer laws and license? Okay.
I would prefer to, if the council feels comfortable, I would prefer to push it forward right away, but if, if people.
I'm comfortable
I'll just
pushing it
Yes.
forward. but
I would
that's
support
nice.
that, councilman.
It's okay, you didn't take it, it's just, sorry about that. My thought is, I'm generally in favor of this, especially considering, speaking with a lot of residents that they feel very passionately about animals, and I know Councilwoman Kukrow certainly does, and, as they're fostering animals and also taking care of animals that might have disabilities, either physical or intellectual ones, or they might be blind. And so I just feel like this is an issue that our residents would care about and would like to see us move forward on. So in my reading of it and checking out, the reliability of the Humane Society, I'm for it, but I'm open to what the council has to say. So.
I just haven't had an opportunity to review it yet, so it just came today, so I just want to give proper time to look it over, so I can't offer an opinion just yet. I know it's an important issue, and I will definitely offer my sentiments.
Well, we can set up the laws and license meeting for whenever you're available, because I'm happy about moving this forward.
Would you feel more comfortable with that, Councilman?
Under laws and license?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. It gives us time to get feedback from the rest of the council. So, yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
Okay, councilwoman, please move forward on that, thank you. Anything else, councilman?
I'm sorry, yeah. Also I'm asking that the laws and license committee, sorry, I'm putting you to hard work. To meet to review chapter 126, which governs the recreation committee and its role in overseeing the recreation complex. I will be asking for clarification from both the recreation committee and Tina as for recommendations for changes in help in the process of making chapter 126 a little bit clearer to alleviate some ambiguities in the language. It's something that has been a challenge at the recreation committee in terms of determining who is responsible for what. So what I thought would be is that I would send that 126 to you guys to review and then get some feedback from the recreation commission and Tina for comment and suggestions. So,
I'm happy to do that.
yeah.
Councilman, before you move on.
Yes.
With the chapter 126, not saying I'm for or against it, but I did see on social media some thoughts about revisiting the fees that we charge, because they're different for Garwood use and also outside of town use. For example, the outside of town fees are higher than for Garwood nonprofits and so forth. So, and I know as a former Recreation Commission liaison, that was something the Rec Commission was even interested in, possibly increasing them. They haven't been adjusted since the complex was built December of 2015, so.
We're talking about increasing fees for
Rentals.
rentals outside of Garwood residents, or both Garwood
Well,
residents and.
I would be interested in the Recreation Commission's opinion first, but I always would lean towards outside of Garwood before.
Sure, I will.
Inside of Garwood
I will
for
bring
that.
up that topic of discussion at our next
Okay.
recreation committee meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, and my final item is a request for you, Tina, to write a letter to the Board of Education informing them that starting on Monday, April 16th, Hartman Park will be closed so that our DPW can start removing the old equipment from Hartman Park. The installation of the new equipment will be commencing soon thereafter, and right now I don't have an exact timeline for the completion until I get word from the installer later this week. So, but you know that DPW is going to start removing the actual old equipment and the mulch there and a couple of the trees that were are there that need to be removed to start that kind of preparation work. So if you could just send that letter to the Board of Ed.
Those dates are in your report there, so I didn't catch them.
April 16th, it's in my report that I emailed to you as well. Yeah. And that's it. Thank you.
And you said it said closed, right?
Yeah, closed starting Monday, April 16th.
Councilman, just one more question on that.
Yes.
I know when we were, well, when I was a member of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, it was looking like that project would take about 6 weeks for the company to complete. So are we still looking at by June,
Yes.
at some point in June, by the end of the school year?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
likely by the time that beginning of June, it looks like that's a pretty solid time range for how long it will be taking.
Okay.
But I will definitely have a more definitive timeline at the next council meeting.
Great.
So would you be directing me to put up signage that the park is closed and?
Yes. Yeah, you can sign up
Okay.
starting for Monday, April 16th.
Okay, we'll prepare this.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Council. Councilwoman McCormick?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I started out tonight with only 3 things to ask, but it's coming out to 5, so bear with me. And the first is a response to what you read, Mayor, about illegal guns. Isn't it illegal to have an illegal gun? And why are we starting something new in this process?
Yes, it is illegal.
So what are we trying to accomplish?
Well, hopefully I'll go forward with the meeting on the 11th and find out the direction they're trying to go to.
So I'm not just asking you, we're questioning your
No, I
opinion.
understand.
Why are we in this state? If an illegal gun is illegal, it's illegal. What is our process after we establish the gun is illegal? What are we after? Or maybe you cannot answer that question.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. So yes, Mayor, thank you. In regards, I have many questions. And bear with me if I ask, that's going to take a while. I'd like to start with the budget. And again, I am new to this process. And I am very sincere and heartwarming in what I'm asking. And I respect that you hold your remarks till I'm done with all 3 of my questions, after the budget and so on. So on page 14 of the budget.
Oh, Councilman McCormick, can you do me a favor? Could
Yes, sir.
we hold that? Because we have Roy Vallis sitting in the audience. Can we suspend the regular order of business?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. Gentlemen, would you please step forward?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm here with the RVSA, the Raleigh Valley Sewage Authority, by request really of the mayor and council folks, and to give a broad overview of the budgetary process, and to let them explain how it's tracked and how the budget is divvied up among the various communities. It's an interesting process. It's not always straightforward or as straightforward as we would hope, but unfortunately it is a process that has been agreed upon by our 11 municipalities and something that we're abiding by right now. But I'll let them talk a little further on it to give some better explanation and in-depth explanation on some of the charges we have. I have Jim Meehan, who's our director of the RVSA. He's been doing a fabulous job since he's taken over. He's streamlined the operation. He's reduced the operating budget to a large extent. So he's a real asset to the RVSA. We also have John Bonapura, who's our engineer and assistant superintendent, and he does all the number crunching for the flows and for submittal to the finance group. And then I have Anthony Chancelli, and he's our compliance officer. So he can tell you a little bit about the metering and what's involved with that. With that, I might as well turn it over to these guys. And I have to kind of apologize a little bit because normally we'll have a table here. That's okay. We don't have it, so they're used to standing all day anyway. So no problem.
John, you can pass
Gentlemen, you
that.
can grab seats and sit down there. There's 2 chairs there. You can pull up.
There you go.
John, the microphone's available.
Would you prefer that we sit down?
Up to you, Tony.
One talk or two chairs?
There's two chairs against the wall over there.
No.
No.
I can just stand. I appreciate the kind words from Steve, and we're glad to be here. Well, good evening, everybody. As Steve said, we have streamlined the operations. I know last year was really a very good year, where we went down, the overall budget went down about 1.5%. This year, unfortunately, it had to go up about 2.6%. And I can tell you the main contributors to that increase were a 15% increase roughly in natural gas pricing. We use a lot of natural gas to supplement the methane gas that we burn in our cogen engines, and we do make our own power for the most part. Also, we had an increase in maintenance costs for the cogen and the overall facility. That was about the second biggest hit we took. And also, we didn't receive quite as much leachate at the head of the plant as we normally do. Last year, it went down a couple $100,000, and we use that to offset the budget. But overall, the increase this year to the overall budget, the operating budget, was 2.61%. In addition, we added a line to the budget, and it's called assessment stabilization, in anticipation of the 2% cap that they're putting on sewer authorities, and we're in the middle of working through the details on what that's going to mean to us next year. The board had the foresight to put a little bit of money in a line to help us work with that 2% cap going forward. We put, I believe, $100,000 in there this year. Right? So those are the main things that affected the budget this year. I will tell you on the positive end, at the end of this month, we're going to get our first shipment of food waste. I'm sure you've all heard about the public-private partnership. We have a long-term partnership with Waste Management to co-digest food waste along with our biosolids. It's going to increase our gas production. We're going to receive significant tip fees. And over the first 10 years of the contract, conservatively, we expect to bring in about $6 million. If you remember, I think last year when we spoke, that was part of trying to make us whole with the cogen. The cogen has been operating all year. The dryers operated for the most part nearly all year long, and we've gotten significant savings from them. Certainly not what they planned on, but we did pretty well. And those things have helped to keep the budget down as well. John has some handouts that I think he gave everyone. And I know you're all familiar with our 5-year rolling average. It's not perfect, as we've explained through the last couple of years. There are some inherent problems that come with that the way that we assess. We're working on, we do have a work group. I'd like you to know that along with John and myself and Tony, we have Lou Lambie, who also runs the biggest collection system. He's one of our commissioners. He runs the biggest collection system on the East Coast at the Passaic Valley. Very knowledgeable. So between the four of us, we're taking a hard look at the way we assess in the 5-year rolling average, and we're trying to figure out ways to take some of the peaks and valleys out, the sharp increases and decreases. I will tell you, Kenilworth got hammered this year with a big increase. And they have a new board member who's very interested in what work we may do in this direction. We do have another meeting next Monday. We are reporting monthly to the board on what some of the recommendations are. I can tell you we're looking at things like taking out possibly the BOD and TSS from part of the equation and just assessing straight flow and backing the numbers back into the system from the headworks, as opposed to taking routine samples across the how many meters? 21 meters throughout the year. It may make more sense to just assess based on what comes into the plant, back out through the flow percentages. We're looking at that. And we're also looking at a mechanism that would kick in when a municipality receives a rate increase that's more than 8 or 10%. We may be able to, if we can't justify the number in a manner that we find acceptable, we would plug in a 5-year average in that spot and take out some of the big hit from that. But all the 11 members have to agree to these changes. So it's not as easy as me saying we should do this. I have to convince 11 people to do the same thing, and then they have to convince their own borough councils as well, and mayors. So, I mean, with that, John can talk to you a little bit about the recent increase you've had, and he will talk a little bit about the charts that we handed out. I'd be glad to answer some questions before I step down for John, if anybody has anything in particular.
I have a question.
Sure.
What are the options of towns if it wasn't for you? What other options are there?
There are. Unless you find another regional sewage authority that will take and treat your waste. You're part of the 11 members.
Right, I doubt it.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, there used to be septic tanks, but they've gotten away from all that. And we're not really a bad game in town. If you look at the last 8 years, although your assessment has moved, if you look at our operating costs over the last 8 years, we literally, the changes we've made in the authority have saved, and I'm not kidding you, millions of dollars. Millions.
What have you done to specifically save those millions of dollars?
Well, we cut staff right away as soon as I came in significantly. We went from 61 down to the low 50s until we recently started operating the cogen and the dryer. We added 3 or 4 more people then, brought them back. So we saved a lot of money just on labor alone. We went out to reverse auctions for natural gas and electric through a company named EMEX. And we do a little bit better with our power procurement. And also, what's that?
And the shifts, by switching the way we do we have 3 shift rotation for all 24 hours. By adjusting the way we do our shifting, saved a lot on overtime. And
we had 5 shifts when I got here. We only have 3 now. There's only 24 hours in the day. I don't know how you get 5 shifts in. We eliminated that pretty quickly. So there's a minimal coverage, and we do run lean. John's right. And we are running the cogen and the dryer. We are saving significant money with that now. The economics swung in our favor. Natural gas prices are down. And it got very expensive to landfill your sludge. The fact that we dry it now, we put out only about 20 or 25% of the amount of dried sludge as we used to. So we've saved significantly between the dryer and the cogen, probably somewhere in the range of $600,000 to $700,000 a year by running that system. It's a lot of money. We've made a lot of positive changes.
What percentage of the entire operating budget is fuel?
Percentage of the entire operating budget.
You don't know what I mean. I know, sorry.
Probably about $1 million, a little more than that.
with everything, probably 2 with gas and electric.
It's a little over $1 million. So, and our operating budget is $12.5 million or so. Rough number.
112?
So it's a little more than 112. It's about $1.5 million, I would say. I think it's a little less than that, but I don't have the big sheet in front of me.
And one of my other questions, what steps are you taking to mitigate costs in the future? How are you taking advantage of technology as it becomes available?
I don't know necessarily that there's a lot of technology that we're taking advantage of, in that we are going to produce a significant amount of gas in the next 10 years. We're going to try to triple our gas production, our biogas. And we'd like to come close to being net zero. We'd like to bring that energy line down to about $200,000 or $300,000 as opposed to $1.5 million. That's the goal. And that $6 million that we're going to bring in with the public-private partnership is significant. And I want to tell you, that's the first of its kind. We're the only authority in the United States that has a long-term public-private partnership, not for a trial. We're not sticking our toe in the water. We jumped in with both feet because we know it works. And we were first in line. We took advantage of good tip fees. I can tell you in Massachusetts, they just put a deal together. They're getting a penny a gallon. You know, we get 3.65. We were first online, and we were smart to do it. So there are a lot of things that going forward that we'll continue to do. We'll certainly take a look at disposal of our biosolids. We think that maybe someday we can create a fertilizer. But those are things that really have to be hashed out. We're not there yet.
This was encouraging. Thank you for answering some of our questions. I know there's still more to come.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to take
Jim, before you leave, I grew up in Kenilworth, and I don't think Kenilworth has changed much from when I was a child to now. Why did Kenilworth get hammered?
Well, I always said that I think that they were part of a perfect storm. There's a 3% margin of error in metering, and there are 4 meters that are involved in their calculation, I believe, correct? You know, so if, let's say that they did have a flow increase, and let's say they were on the bad end of that 3%, and they caught 6%. If you couple that with I&I and increased flow, and margin of error on the meter, and also sampling is not a perfect science either. If you get a bad day, you get high solids. I think when you put all of those things together, they may have just been caught on the bad end. Again, if you want to talk about Kenilworth,
Yeah.
John can give you a little more detail about where their bill was 10 years ago as to now. They're in a similar position you are. There are 5-year swings with this 5-year rolling average that, unless you're a mathematician and you spend a couple of weeks looking at this, you know, it's kind of give you a clear explanation.
I just thought it was a fair question to ask. Thank you.
Do you have more to add to that, John?
Well, if you'd like to, as far as Kenilworth goes, if you want to look at this, I'll explain real quick. The 8.5 by 11 memo. This memo, for some of the newer council people, goes over how we calculate the percentage that each town gets billed. And what you'll notice as you go through here, this was all established as part of the 1995 agreement, which was updated, but this actual goes back to the original 1935 agreement. So what we do is we measure each town's flow, their TSS, which is total suspended solids, which is how dirty the water is, and then BOD, which is how strong that water is. So the example we always use is a glass of water, clear water. You pour a bucket of sugar in it, it's going to still look clear, but there's a lot of chemical and a lot of strength in that water now that we need to take out. So we measure all those things. As Jim mentioned, we have 21 meters out in our system. We measure the flow coming into every town, and we measure the flow going out. And by doing that calculation, we can then figure out how much flow that town added on a daily basis. And then we also sample the BOD and TSS, the sampling on both the grab sample every other week, and then every other month we do composite sampling in-house, where we sample for a 5-day period, 24 hours a day. And we do that every other month. That then goes into an equation. And part of what happens with towns, and Kenilworth I think also experienced a little bit of this, and I believe Garwood does also, even if your town stays exactly the same, we bill on a percentage. So if your town stays exactly the same, but other towns have fixed up their I&I and the flow, total flow has gone down, your percentage is going to go up. So even though your gallons hasn't changed, your percentage has gone up.
Yeah, if you look at this year's assessments, I think Woodbridge and Rollaway both went down significantly. And those are big players at the 11 members. And a smaller community like yourself picks up a good shot from that, because the pie doesn't change. It's still the same size pie.
It's always 100%.
Yes, exactly. So that's a great point, John.
Shouldn't the pie be based on the size of the town?
Well, it is. Technically, you're assessed a percentage of what comes in. But if you have a town, like say like Woodbridge, it used to be 27 or 28% of our flow. I think they're down to about 24 or 25 now. That 3% swing has to be picked up by the other municipalities. So if your percentage only changed a couple of tenths, the numbers are still there. You have to pick up the slack from the other community that went down.
A lot of money in Flushing.
Well, if you look at your
When it doesn't
assessment,
flush, you'll
if you look at your assessment last year, I think the dollar numbers actually went down, but the percentage still went up. And that was because you caught the benefit of the 1.5% decrease in our budget. This year, we just could not do it. We tried. And Steve will tell you, those budget meetings can get pretty intense.
Especially if you're Kenilworth this year.
Oh, yeah.
And just, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these two charts. I believe they're pretty self-explanatory. The first chart that has the 3 lines is just for Garwood specifically, how your flow, TSS, and BOD has changed over the last 18 years, or 11 years. Sorry, 11 years. So you can see your flow has actually stayed fairly constant, going back to about 2008. I believe also, when you're talking in percentages with a small amount, a small change is a big percentage. So you do experience a little bit of that. But if you look at the chart with only the 2 lines on it, the blue line is your 5-year moving average. So after we do that calculation of your flow via TSS, you get a yearly percentage, and in order to smooth out some of these ups and downs, that gets put into a 5-year average. So that blue line there is your 5-year moving average, and that's what we actually assess you based on. And the red line is your actual assessment. So if you look at 2018 and 17, you know, we've had a couple of ups and downs, but we've been pretty stable in that area. And I would like to point out that you're still below where you were in 2009. So I think that's been a pretty good track record in that respect.
It's not perfect, we know that, and we are working on it, but it'll be a few months before the board could possibly come to an agreement to tweak that 95 agreement a little further.
I offer something that may be helpful for all of us and for future councils. One thing that would help us in the charts, I can understand how the numbers make sense. I can understand how Garwood is the smallest, if not the smallest piece of the pie. We're one of the top, the bottom 2. Commentary as to what contributed to our flows and how it relates to the rest of it would probably help us understand what's happening going further. I think that would
If I give you something written as opposed to what I spoke
Right.
about and what John spoke about.
That way the numbers tell a story. I think that would be one thing that all of us, no matter where you come from, can have a better understanding of what you're doing. Just something to, you know, ponder.
Yeah, because it's quite complicated.
It is.
Yeah, we tried to distill it down to 1-page memo.
Well, I see double from 1999 to 2018, so I mean, you know, it's a really, it's hard to get your head wrapped around this stuff.
John, does any one community have 1 meter they have to read?
Several, yeah, Springfield does, Woodbridge, well, Woodbridge has 2 for Mountainside does.
What communities only have 1 meter they rely on for their flow? Just curious.
I mean, the towns at the top of our system.
Okay, because that's what, okay.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Just want to thank the 3 of you for being here. I have to say, I think this was my 6th or 7th presentation, and I do appreciate it. I know that you do run an efficient machine there. You've spoken to those efficiencies and the cutbacks that you did years ago when you joined, and I want to commend you for that because that has made a difference. But I would also like to plead, well, before I get to my pleading, I guess, I just want to say that, you know, this is the first time, however, I've heard you discuss the possibility of changing how you calculate this. And it's very, very intriguing to me, and I certainly would plead to really look at that as you are because of our smaller municipalities. So just to give you an example, if it goes up $60,000, that's $20 per house. That's huge when it comes to talking tax increases. Sure, but then on the other side, and I get this, that when we get the bill from you and it goes down $60,000, we get to enjoy a $30 per house savings. But being able to soften that so that the peaks and valleys are narrower, that would be very helpful for us. I'm sure Kenilworth as well, because it seems like 1 or 2 of those larger communities could have something go for them one way, and then it disrupts the whole line for the rest of us. I'm really glad that you're looking at that.
I appreciate that, and I can tell you that before we even get to the 11 members, we already don't agree on some of the suggestions in the work group. So it's going to take some work and some convincing to get everybody on the same page. It is.
But as you indicated, you have to have all 11 members buy into
Yes.
it. That's the whole crux of it.
Yes.
It could be great ideas and will probably work, but as you indicated too, is that one town may be going on a higher road and the other, they'll never
When
meet.
it's on the
they'll never-
downswing, doesn't want to change.
Never. Okay, thank you. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
it's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And no offense, hope I don't have to see you next year.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a real quick closing. I just want to let everyone know that there's a really fabulous website that was just revamped for the RVSA. And it gives a tremendous amount of information, including all the budgetary information, how the system operates, what it looks like from an aerial view, and what each individual function of that aerial view does. So, I mean, a lot of these questions, or some of these questions that you may even have, could be answered just by reviewing what's
That's true,
available
I have
to
that
you.
on that website, will teach you a lot.
I mean, it really is. And in addition, you folks take groups down and students down on a regular scheduled visit if they're willing to do
Yeah,
that.
we're happy to give tours.
I've been in communication with Joanne, and we're trying to set something up in the near future. Wait till the weather breaks a little bit.
So again, I can't thank these guys
Yes.
enough. They've been great, taking their time out and spending a little extra time with us, but
And thank you to you, Mr. Buford.
Good night, everyone.
All right, thank you
Good
very
night,
much.
gentlemen. Thank you. Back to our normal business. Councilman McCormick, you had some questions?
Yes. Thank you again. So on page 14 in the budget, back in 2015, it's taken me a couple times to review this, and I could be wrong, but it's still a good question. The attorney fees were budgeted for $45,000. The actual cost came to a lot more, which was $86,000 plus. So in 2016, we budgeted for $85,000, and then again, the actual cost went down, it was $52,000. This year to date, we're budgeting $45,000. So my question is, back in 2015, it was almost a double jump. So my question is, did that come from low-income housing, the Russo development, and everything added into that? And then today we turn around and we find out that Russo, for the first year, is giving us a $75,000 check. I wonder how that $75,000 check reflects on the extra money we spent back in 2015. How do we find that in the budget? How do we account for that? That's my first question. The second question is, again, with that $75,000, the $45,000 from Sandy, and the back taxes that we collected in the borough, it's almost like, if you don't mind me saying, free money. But in that free money, we must have paid a price in the past to come with this free money. So I'm wondering why a good majority of that money wasn't put into capital funds. And I'm a big advocate of, why do we have to buy everything brand new, when if we have adequate amount of money in a capital fund, we can buy a good quality police car for maybe traffic, a buggy truck, something that's not used daily all the time. That was question number 2. Question number 3 is the fire department, which in the past meetings, people that have attended, I hold as near and dear to my heart. I was educated, being elected to council, on how much the fire department means to the borough of Garwood. The fire department requested $77,500. We are budgeting them $67,500. Quick math, obviously it's 10 grand. We all want to invest in the borough of Garwood. Sunday, this past Sunday, I made an appointment with the chief. I figured my meeting would be about 10 to 15 minutes. I left from church in a suit just like this. And at 1:15, I got home. I spent well over 2.5 hours at the fire department. And I'm going to tell you, I got educated. And I got heartwarming on how important Garwood Fire Department means to everything that we feel is important in this borough. Whether it be what we sit here, or a school, or a new Hartman Park, or athletic field, whatever it may be. The fire department will miss this $10,000. I have found out walking along with the chief that a lot of their equipment is on the verge of being outdated. They have some fancy, antiquated name for their fire suits. And I say with a smile because I really don't know it. I'd have to look it up. But you budgeted $9,000. So for $9,000, we are able to buy 4 suits. That's right, only 4. They showed me the difference between an old suit and a new suit. And I want to remind everybody sitting here today again, those of us that own a home, that's an investment. Those of us that have properties, that's another investment. And the firemen or firewomen, that's a huge investment in our town. And if we can't invest in them, how are they in return going to save what we invested for ourselves? So I am sitting here today pleading that this budget somehow funds that extra $10,000 for our fire department. I mean, and I'll tell you, it's heartwarming for me. I'm very glad I was appointed to this because it was a rude awakening for me to be the fire commissioner. We take for granted what happens around us in everything in life. And until you're part of that, and until you see what volunteers do, and in this case, they are infringing on their life to save our possessions, I am pleading for that extra $10,000. That's all from my report, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Sarno?
Thank you, Rich, for the great story there. I mean, you have my support when you talk about the fire department, how we're cutting certain departments in order when we really should be just putting that little bit of money, even if it is a small increase. There's no money that we could put on lives. And that's something that if you want to even take that conversation further about the fire department, maybe we should have a real full-blown discussion about the ladder truck and when the timing of that's going to be purchased. You know, to go along with your sentiment, I think that's very important. And if we're not going to do this, then we better be explaining it out to the public as to what our intentions are as a council. Right, wrong, or no matter what we think, it needs to be out there. We can't be hiding behind it and kicking around the idea, whether it goes out to a vote or whatever. So thank you for your comment. What I want to talk about today is about the shared service agreement with Roselle Park. I had reached out to them. Obviously, council said, hey, go out there, you could talk to them. They got back to me, I believe it was Thursday or Friday of last week, the clerk, and they said that Roselle Park was interested in meeting with us. They have a municipal shared service committee of 3 council members. And they also want to include in a meeting, hypothetically, with Garwood, the assistant superintendent over there, the CFO, and the borough clerk, just to see what our options are, okay? And to see if maybe there's a fit in order to work with our DPW. And again, I'm referring to the DPW, but I didn't make that clear to begin with. Now, as much as I'd like to just go there by myself, I don't think that's the most adequate way. And I spoke to the clerk today of Roselle Park, and he said that's just the way they like to do things. They like to have everyone there, everyone at the table, all their professionals to answer all questions as they come up. And I think this is an important step for us. I think that we should be assembling a similar type committee. We should sit down at the table. We should vet the process out. If it's not going to be, if it doesn't work today, at least we can go back to the taxpayers and say, the match isn't here with Roselle Park. What we have with Fairwood maybe is a better deal, but I still think we owe it to everyone in this town to at least sit down at the table and hear what they have to say. That's all we're trying to do. They're definitely interested, and I know I asked 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to ask again, are we interested in, as a council, in moving forward in sitting down with Roselle Park?
Why absolutely, yeah.
As we had spoke the other evening, I feel first of all that we personally don't have a superintendent. We would have to bring Fairwood to the table with us. I think, as I mentioned in my report, I think we have a very good current agreement with Fanwood. The committees have been very successful to bring street sweepings as part of the agreement. And I probably going to regret saying this, but I think Roselle Park is fishing. They want to get information from us to learn a good product that we have to learn how to do in Roselle Park. That's my opinion.
I'd like to comment on Councilman Sarno's. We all sit here today because we all knocked on doors. And we all listened to the residents, and we all said yes, and maybe we can. And maybe some of us made promises. But we knocked on those doors and listened to the residents, and they elected us here today to sit here and represent the best that we can give Garwood. Not I or they, we. So I don't see why it's such a bad deal to spend a couple hours and sit down with another community and talk. I don't know what's so bad about that. I'm looking for your voice on that. Go ahead.
Councilman?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Well, Councilman, thanks for bringing this forward. I do have some basic questions about it because to the mayor's point there about us bringing Fanwood in with us, what really is Roselle Park's situation right now? What are their timelines looking like? You mentioned the assistant superintendent. What's his role? Is it acting superintendent right now? I just want to really know the landscape of what we're talking about. And if it's just about having a meeting, I mean, I'll sit in on that.
That'd be great.
So if you could answer my first question, but I'd sit in on it, I'd listen. I will say I've spoken about the Fanwood Shared Service, and the reason for teaming up with them is they brought us someone with experience here in Garwood as a past superintendent, someone who knew the vast majority of the staff, knew the vast majority of the equipment, and of course our town roads and so forth, but I'm still an open-minded person, and I would like to be a part of that meeting, sure.
But also, I didn't mention in my little statement before, we do have, being a component of committees, we do have a committee on this council that a 2-to-1 vote want to go forward with it, and I would support that if they want to go.
I just, Councilman, I do worry though about the timeline. Are they looking for a superintendent, or they? I mean, I know you think we have a long time to deal with this because we say August, but the fact remains that there's not that many meetings in between now and then, and a negotiation of that sort might take 6 months more, especially if they don't currently have a superintendent and they're looking for it. So my concern with this honestly is the timeline. I mean, I have other reasons that I do think our shared service at this moment is working very well, but sitting down for a meeting is fine, but it doesn't seem like they are prepared to offer Garwood anything right away, which means that we kind of get stuck and then Fanwood gets stuck. We do have to look at it at that sort of way. We don't want to burn a bridge on that.
All right. So, timelines, here's the thing, you look at that shared service agreement, I mean, we can always, there's an exit strategy no matter what, and that's something that even Mayor Marr, when she sat in this building, explained very well. I mean, she said there's, one of the things you talk about is a 60-day window to leave, and it's not, they're looking to hire a superintendent. They want to see if we would be interested in having that superintendent do a similar type of agreement where their superintendent will watch over our town. Now, this is in theory. This is something on top, and so this is very preliminary. They're just trying to kick around the idea of who could be an interested partner, and they're trying to gather information. We can also gather information from them, what they're trying to do.
But as my opening statement indicated, we don't have a superintendent. We're renting, right? We have a shared service. He works for Fanwood.
But that means, what you're saying, Mayor, is that we can never look at another agreement. Because in that case, let's say even if it's years down the road, that means that we wouldn't be able to even sit down at all. I mean, I think we owe it to actually sit down and make sure what we have is the best. And if it is, it is. And the one thing that the clerk made clear to me, if now's not the time, so be it. If it's a year down the road, that's fine. 2 years down the road, their council is willing to listen, and that's all this is about. You know, that was the conversation I got. They have I think the committee's got a mixed bag of 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, so it's bipartisan, and I think that's really neat, because at the end of the day, it's about what's best for the community and working together to do that. If it's just listening, it's just listening, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I made it clear already, but I just want to make sure I have support of everybody.
I have no problem having the meeting, you know, in the same kind of sentiments that Councilwoman Tedisco said. I guess where my slight reservations is that when you go into a meeting for this, I think it sort of creates the perception that we're unhappy with our current contract. So I'm not opposed to having that meeting as long as we, I guess, are clearly communicating with Fanwood that, you know, obviously we're looking for the best interest of Garwood, that we are happy with our current contract, but we want to look at other opportunities. So I just think that when you go into looking for a new contract, it does, whether or not we say that, it does create the sense that we are currently unhappy with our contract. That's where I do have a little bit of a reservation about it. So, you know, if I was unhappy with the contract, or the council as a whole was unhappy with the contract, I would say, yes, let's go forward, is kind of why we had that discussion. Maybe when we were talking about the, you know, the construction, you know, when we were looking out to the License and Law Committee, looking at construction department. So that's kind of like where I have slight reservations, but I'm certainly open to the idea of having a meeting to see what that information they have to share.
And it's not to say that we're upset. I don't, in my line of work, we always try to see what we could do better, right? How can I make the process better? Can we get a better vendor in here? It's not necessarily that we're upset with it. It may be good, but we want to know that it's good. You know, that's what this is about. You know, that's what it's about. It may make the argument stronger that this agreement is the best we can do right now. And I think that's important too, to say, hey, not only did we re-sign it, we actually went out to we went to different towns that are looking to partner with us, and they weren't an adequate fit. At least we can go back to our taxpayers and say, we tried, and this is the best deal we could do, and this is what it's doing.
I'd like to back you up on that comment and go back to what the other council people and the mayor have said, that we're somewhat satisfied with what Fanwood's doing, and they're doing a good job. But the question really is, compared to what? What are we comparing it to? I think you have to add that word in here, compared to what? So why can't we have this meeting and sit down? What harm is that?
Well, I do think we do have to be careful, because when you say compared to what, even if let's say the price tag was better, you're still dealing with an unknown in terms of whoever they hire or you know, how the agreement would come about. So we can't quite compare if you haven't already had an agreement and experienced it with someone, whereas we've had the past 3 years and have had a very satisfactory experience with Fanwood. So that, to me, that kind of weighs heavier. But like I said, I suggest, though, that we continue to go forward with Fanwood. I don't know what we have to do at this point. I know we've contacted them, and I believe they have discussed it and are quite happy, and you've discussed it with the mayor, and they're quite happy to redo the minutes. So I suggest that we do continue forward with this contract, and if you do want to have a meeting with Roselle Park, just to have that meeting, that they be aware that we are re-signing with Fanwood, as we don't have time to start a whole new negotiation, but that we would just want to hear from them.
If I may make a suggestion that may make everyone up here at least pretty happy, I hope, that's my goal in this, is that we do have a meeting, 3 council members, I'd really like to be part of that, with 3 members from the Roselle Park Council. We have a meeting between now and our next council meeting, so we can get the rest of our council up to speed with how that meeting goes. And in the meantime, continue with Fanwood down the path we are. I believe it seems like we're at the stage where both parties are interested in staying together. They are amenable to adding the street sweeping of Garwood as much as they street sweep in Fanwood. They'll street sweep here in Garwood. And so I'd like to see that contract actually written out. Maybe we can have that in front of us by the next meeting or so. That would be wonderful. And then we can kind of take it from there to what Councilman Sarno was saying about the 60-day out. I think that's really important to look at. The 60-day out in the beginning was very, very important because we wanted to make sure that it was satisfactory, and if it wasn't, that we could get out. And as we can see, there's never been anyone up here suggesting that it's a bad agreement and we need to get out. So that's why we stayed through the whole, as we're approaching the 3-year anniversary of it. And so I think we should continue down that path. The 60-day out doesn't necessarily mean be in negotiations all the time, because then, to Council President's point, we might be burning bridges. We really don't want to burn bridges. And when Councilman McCormick brought up compared to what, I think to answer that is to compare to full-time superintendent, completely the way it was done before. And the fact is, we have saved over $200,000 in the last 3 years with this contract. We have had the benefits of Fanwood's equipment being here in Garwood. We have had the benefit of them helping us out with street sweeping last year when our sweeper was completely done after just doing the north side of town once. And they did bring over, like I said, numerous pieces of equipment here. Leaf vacuum, street sweeper, like I mentioned. We have seen the superintendent plowing during snowstorms. We've done very well during snowstorms, which I think was one of the main concerns of the residents 2.5 years ago or so. So that would be my suggestion. Let's get the meeting with Roselle Park together within the next 2 weeks, but let's also try to get that Fanwood agreement in writing so that we can have the conversation next time and begin moving forward.
I think we should definitely do those 2 points. I want to see it in writing. I want to see what the street sweeping is going to look like and what the final outcome of that is. And I want to assemble a team. I'd like to do it now. I'd like to see who would like to do it and who we can bring as well.
Yes, of course.
I would suggest that, as indicated, that it's imperative that we do within the next 2 weeks. Councilman Sarno, Council President Blumenstock, and Councilwoman Tedesco be on that committee. And
You always make the same people on the committees, Mayor. I would be happy to sit in on that.
they just volunteered, basically.
Well, nobody else
I
had a chance to
apologize.
volunteer, so.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want the Streets and Roads Chairman on that committee. Councilman Sarno took the initiative, and Councilman Tedesco brought up a good point, so that's why I selected that people. Nothing against anyone else.
I didn't be
Before people?
Nobody even gets a chance to say
No,
that.
That would be a quorum.
That's, yeah. So, at this point, just as indicated by the council people, we may be going down a slippery slope, and you have to be very careful. And I bring it to my original point is that what are we going to do with it about a superintendent? We have Fanwood superintendent. We don't have one of our own. That's all I want to say at this point.
This may sound like I'm picking stones here, but every 3 to 4 years between towns, we choose a new mayor and council. So if Roselle Park is in the mix of picking a new superintendent, what's the big deal? I don't understand that. It's a bad argument.
It's not a bad argument because the gentleman was here for 3 years, then he went to Fanwood, and that's how we wound up working with him and developing this agreement. So it's not a change every 3 or 4 years. Okay.
Could we ask if Tina would want to come?
If it's okay for me to fine, I would rather not be involved.
Can we have anybody from the borough staff, given the fact that their CFO, their clerk,
You
and
can
their...
extend an extension to Mrs. Bruns if you'd like to.
Sure.
I don't think I have anything to contribute, Councilman, that's why I'm declining.
Okay. Anything else, Councilman?
No, I think this is a good step, so thank you for volunteering. Let's see what we can do. Thank you.
Councilwoman Tedesco?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few items tonight. We all received 4 proposals on revaluation, which ranged in price from $95,000 to $134,000 in cost. And I wanted to follow up to see what our tax assessor thought, and she did go ahead and recommend the lowest one, which was Realty Appraisal Company. which she is very happy with. She's currently working with them in Westfield and is, like I said, very happy with them. They've been responding to all the questions very promptly, which is, of course, very, very important. And this company, in fact, came highly recommended from Roselle Park, who used them in 2015 for their reval. And to date, they've done over 400 revaluations across the state. So I think we should move forward with Realty Appraisal Company, and maybe we can direct our clerk to do that tonight.
Well, if I may, from my opinion, I did the same homework you did, basically. Talking to Westfield, and also to some residents, and the current mayor of Roselle Park, of course, came with the same discussion. Everybody was very happy with them. And also, too, as you go through the proposal, it states they've been 70 years of experience. They have 12 inspectors just for this project. And interesting words, too, were public education and citizens meetings, which we've talked about through the whole process. So I think we should move forward with that.
Yeah, you have my support.
I agree.
In reading the proposals, it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also took the painstaking time to read all those documents and go through every one of them.
Did you?
And I was very happy to tell you that the choice that we're given is the same choice that I picked, so.
Very good, thank you.
Was the cheapest and the best.
Can't get better than that, right?
You can't.
All right, very good. Another update, the volunteer reward card, they've been printed and they've been distributed to all the volunteer groups and committees in town. Most have been given out, but a few will be passing them out to their members at their upcoming meetings this week and next 2 weeks, actually. So Garwood has literally hundreds of volunteers, from those in emergency services like the fire department and first aid squad, to borough-appointed boards, committees, and commissions, to school-related groups like the PTA and the EFG, as well as other private organizations like the Knights of Columbus and Lions Club. And they really are the heart of our small town with a big heart. And while, of course, no one volunteers for recognition, I have to say, in delivering these cards, they've been really, really appreciated by the volunteers out there. And in speaking with a few elected officials from other towns, I can definitely see this idea taking off in other communities too, because I think all our communities do appreciate the volunteerism that goes on there. It does not go unnoticed, all those hours and everything that goes into it. Another item I have, this is the last one, crossing guard breakfast. So I had brought this up a couple months ago, and I didn't mean to bring this up at our last council meeting, because when I attended the Board of Education meeting last month, Dr. Quigley mentioned how she thought the Crossing Guard Appreciation Breakfast was a great idea, and it was a very nice event which she attended that was done 3 years ago. So she said she would be more than happy to attend, which I think is great. And I do hope this comes to fruition at the end of this school year, because our crossing guards certainly provide an invaluable service to our town, and I know many of them are Garwood residents who have returned to this job year after year, and they certainly are making a difference. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council? Please step to the microphone. State your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Jim Matthew, 335 Hazel Avenue.
Good evening.
Got a few questions. Just a comment. It's just listening to this talk about the Fanwood agreement. Is Fanwood so sensitive that we go and just look into getting another agreement or seeing if this is worth something that we're going to quote unquote burn a bridge? You know, we weren't even sure up until last meeting that they were willing to renew with us. And just by talking to someone, we're going to burn a bridge. That sounds awfully fishy to me. And Mayor Lombardo, specifically, what did you find fishy about Roselle Park? That was quite a statement to me.
Well, basically, it looks like they were just fishing for information.
And who's they in particular? An individual, the mayor?
No, just a group in general, because they don't have a superintendent. It looked like they were trying to get information from us, how they should structure what they were trying to do in their department.
Did you bring that to Mayor Hokinson's?
No, I haven't, because we just spoke last.
I would bring that to his,
Okay.
that's really, and if someone were saying that about Garwood in another borough, I think you would want to know about that. So in that regard, I hope that you just, whether or not this thing is good, I think, I agree with Councilman McCormick, it's really a ruse. It's basically, can we get something better? My focus is not necessarily dollars and cents, although that is worth something. A, get an agreement in Roselle Park that says something other than the superintendent can use the equipment of one borough and the other. That's all that agreement says. We pay $40,000 a year for something that says the DPW superintendent can use the equipment of one borough and the other. It doesn't even say he can use Fanwood's equipment in Garwood. All right? Second thing is, I think it's a golden opportunity for us to hire a superintendent together who has a loyalty to Garwood. Right now, if you're Clint Dixon and there's a snow emergency and you're getting your pension and 95% of your salary from Fanwood, you're in Fanwood. You'd be stupid to come to Garwood, okay? You go ahead, you get hired and interviewed by Garwood and Roselle Park, and theoretically, it's 1/4 of your time is in Garwood, 75% of your time is in Roselle Park. Here's your schedule, this is your time, this is when you're going to Garwood, this is when you're gonna be in Roselle Park. That person from day one will be hired and told, you serve both of these municipalities equally, okay? Because if you're Clint Dixon, and I don't fault him for this, if I'm in Clint Dixon's shoes and there's something hitting the fan, I am in Fanwood all day long. Take my $12,000 a year away from Garwood. I got my benefits, my pension, and 95% of my salary comes from Fanwood. All right. Next thing is, any progress on the Holly Shapezi resolutions?
They never return my call. I called them at least 10 times, email, text message, everything.
You may want to try League of Municipalities, because I would really like, I agree with the substance of those resolutions, and I don't think everyone you sit with out there does. And I would like to see people declare themselves on those resolutions soon. So that would be great.
Well, like I said, I can't believe that they didn't call me back. I mean, literally, it's at least a dozen times.
Okay.
So.
And again, in your committee, Councilwoman, any progress on the resolution with Councilwoman Tedisco's disappointment with the appointment of Mr. Oatman?
We got a whole lot of emails today, and we're going to have another laws and license meeting, because obviously we've got a ton of things on there now, so we'll have another laws and license meeting, and that will be discussed.
Okay, is it possible we'll have a resolution by next meeting having to do with Mr. Oatman? Can we set that goal?
I don't see how that can be done at the next council meeting, but we'll certainly give it our best shot.
All right, I mean, this is Mr. Patterson asked about this, I guess, a month or two ago, so I just wanted to see what, what was going on with that. Fence ordinance, where are we with the fence ordinance?
Mr. Renaud is redoing it and bringing it back. We're waiting for the planning board, actually.
Okay, so the planning board's gonna take a look at the fence, and then it comes back to council.
Correct.
And then forgive me, I didn't come to the last council meeting. That was introduced already, the fence ordinance, or it hasn't been introduced?
It was tabled.
It was tabled.
It was tabled, okay. And then just one other thing.
Wait a minute, the fence ordinance, didn't we just refer to the planning board?
Planning board,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, it wasn't tabled, I don't think. Was it tabled?
We tabled
It
it.
was
Okay,
tabled, it was
sorry.
tabled, right.
Well, so it hasn't been introduced?
Right.
Okay. And then just one other thing, Mayor. I went to your campaign website, and listed on the events is Mayor Saturday. Is Mayor Saturday a campaign event?
No.
Is it appropriate for that to be put on the campaign website? I'm asking the question.
I think it is, it's an event that holds, that
What council person will be there with you?
whoever would like to be.
But
That Mayor's Saturday,
Yeah.
it's the apology, it's Councilman Sino.
Councilman Sarnes going to be there.
And then right after that, you assemble at Borough Hall for the mayor's walk.
All right. It gives the impression that that's a campaign event.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to let you know, you may want to consider taking that down.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening, Mayor and Council, Bill Merced, 320 Hickory Avenue. I was here about 2 weeks ago, right after we had the numerous walks across the nation regarding gun control, and I indicated, I guess I repeated my disappointment that first came to light back in 2013 when the council that I was a part of did not support the gun control resolution I put forth at that time. I indicated that I would update it. I mean this sincerely, and I don't know, I really can't think of a right word. I couldn't believe how many additional school shootings there have been since 2013. It was just, I just sat there and was scrolling down and down and down, and it was just amazing. There have been 131 school shootings at least 276 school-related deaths since August of 1999 when the Columbine occurred. So I have updated this. I asked Mr. Mayor, since there isn't anybody on council right now who supported this back in 2013, I don't know what committee it goes to, but give it to either the clerk or the mayor to see what committee it goes to. I'm not asking for any action tonight, obviously I haven't
Well,
read
it's
it.
obvious, the clerk will accept it, and
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
we'll give it to the...
Yeah, I'll email it to you in Word.
Yeah.
I'll email,
I would probably have this.
well, you do, but I've
This is an
updated it.
update.
So I will email it to you in Word, so obviously you can change it. There are recommendations at the end. I look forward to council moving on that as soon as possible. It's, you know, if you Google it, it's distressing. It's just sad. Excuse me. The other thing, the reval, just to, one thing I know this brought to my attention before in terms of making sure we get our money's worth. I know the mayor knows this, but you know, Union County already has our tax maps. They have our tax maps updated. They're current. So please impress that upon the company that you hire. They're not starting from scratch doing tax maps.
We did hire the firm of Goriel and Deck, and he had communicated with the department prior
Right.
to us going out. So there's
And
been communication.
that's fine, but, you know, I mean, the mayor knows it, but, you know, if you go to the county, they have everything, okay? You can, even in the public view, you can click in your home address, and you can find out everything you didn't want everybody to know is out there. Not as bad as Facebook, but you know, everything is out there. So just make sure we use that service, because that's a free service. They have, the county has other hidden things that the clerk can obtain. The average resident cannot. But that should save our costs, should help us reduce some of those costs, because like I said, they're not starting from scratch. And the other thing, as I mentioned this before regarding reval, please, I encourage you greatly, at the end of the day, when this is all done, you know, what the company is going to find out is what dwelling or what structure is out there operating as a one-family, a two-family, a three-family, a four-family. And it's all well and good that that gets sent to the tax collector, who will then, tax assessor, I'm sorry, who will then assess what those uses are and then tax them appropriately. But I ask you greatly, please also send that information to the zoning officer so that they can see, or he or she can see, you know, if there have been changes, that if something is a two-family, and all of a sudden now, whoa, when the reval went out, the guys went out there, they found out there are, you know, 4 bathrooms and 3 units, that they're not only taxed properly, but that's a violation of our zoning ordinance. And if that gets sent back to the zoning officer to investigate, and that all those applications come before the boards, so we can find out, you know, make sure that what uses we have in town are legal. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else? Raise my hand.
The night would not be complete without you, Bruce.
Oh, wait, there's more. No, good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Bruce Patterson, 325 Willow Avenue. I really do appreciate the spirited debate that went on with the shared services on DPW. It was great to listen. This is what our council is here for, and you know, I appreciate it. Just a suggestion that maybe you can, if we're talking about a timeline and we're pressed for time, maybe just extend it 1 year. Alpha will extend it 1 year, and in the meantime, then maybe look towards Roselle Park and see what they have to say. And probably should sit down and actually list all the great services that Fanwood has given us. And one of them brought up, Councilwoman Tedesco said that the superintendent actually drove around plowing. I mean, that, you know, so there's a little plus. So you know, that's a possibility. Come down with a nice detailed list, see if Roselle Park can even match that and drop the price. And in that spirited debate, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the sides, and just as an aside, you know, it appears it's like a private industry mindset is debating the public employee mindset. That's you know, not to sound demeaning to anybody, but that's what it is. I'm in the private industry, and everybody's going, yeah, look, let's look into it. It's good, we can get it better, but you know, that was just a casual aside. Okay. The mayor's meeting that you had, I guess you had already, but possibly the next one, or even having a special one. And I sent an email to Mayor Sal and Mayor Marr Holly,
Water.
yeah, Holly Shapizi, she's an assemblywoman from Bergen County. She's actually going around to various mayors' groups and speaking on the affordability of housing issue that's obviously stressing out most of the towns in the state. So maybe she could actually be invited to come to a meeting and explain the situation and possibly how the towns, you know, ours is pretty far along right now, but how all the towns can remediate and how possibly we can actually support this adjustment. The time capsule that was brought up the last two council meetings, I'm a member of the historical committee, of course, and there were some emails back and forth. I gave you my ideas, but we have a new chairman. She feels possibly it should be at the town clock instead of Hartman Park. So keep that in mind, that it may not be in reality where we were first talking about Hartman Park. I did send you an email saying, you know, maybe just feel out to the contractor, see what he says about something at Hartman Park. Haven't you done that?
I'm just waiting for the final installation timeline for all that conversation.
Yeah, okay, it's just something minor, just feel on that. But like I said, it may end up over at the clock. Bill, there's business. The budget, yeah, can you just give an overview of what the budget schedule coming up?
Public hearings on April 24th.
That's next meeting? All right, that's when the budget handout will be, we'll get it earlier than that. This is that budget-friendly paperwork, not the budget itself?
Not required to be prepared until, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw it on the bulletin board, it's the
The
original.
regular paper.
The RVSA, you know, I'm disappointed that the public didn't get a shot at it.
That's why they did, Mr. Patterson.
And the reval, you know, it's great to hear that. It is actually going to be a lot less expensive than what we feared, so that's a good plus. But still, you know, I initially about a year, I guess it was a year ago, I was talking about the county maybe somehow offsetting these dollars. You know, I don't know if there's still a light at the end of the tunnel with that issue, but you know, right now they were saying no. But I'll try the county also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson, what exactly did you mean when you said private versus public when we were talking about DPW services?
It seemed, yeah, like I said, it's a casual aside. I know I'm opening up like a can of worms, but it seemed like the public employee sentiment is let's just leave everything and go along and, you know, the way it is. And the private sector sentiment was, oh, let's look into it some more. You know, it may be good, but it may not be good enough. Let's look into it more. So that's kind of like what I saw, where the public sector seems to just move along, and you're in the private sector. I think you understand what I'm saying, but it's kind of rough and tumble, competitive.
I think you got my point of why you asked me that question.
It's very competitive. Oh, while I'm at,
you're way over here.
Just one quick. I did send you an email about the hazmat study and the hazmat plan.
That's part of a questionnaire I sent to Mr. Mix.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time?
Hello, everybody. Lou Petrozelli, 232 Hemlock Avenue. My comment is, you know, just that. I did hear Rich talk about that he met with the fire chief, and apparently their budget was asked for $77,000, but that was cut back by 10. That $10,000 pays for turnout gear. Turnout gear is what the firemen wear to go into a fire, and I think that that's something that really should be funded in the budget. I'm quite sure that there's other things in the budget that also need to be funded. I'm aware that the DPW has and does need a street sweeper. I know that there could be something else as far as a shared service agreement, but I'm really not a fan of equipment like that when it comes down to shared service, because when you need it, you then have to wait for it. Our roads are getting pretty dirty. I don't know if anybody really drives around. I'm parked on Willow right now, and the street's actually pretty bad. And I know it's been quite a while since it's been swept. So those are really just my comments. I just want to make sure that every department is funded properly and not cut just to have a zero. I know that the police department, I love those guys and they get what they need. Fire department runs on a very small budget, and I think an extra $10,000 would go very far in that department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam Salmon, 341 Myrtle Ave. Just to touch on what Councilman McCormick said, my parents recently had a fire, and I watched all of these volunteer men, including Garwood, go into their house and risk their life just to save a dog. And it's really hard to hear, I'm sorry, it touches home for me. It's really hard to hear that our firemen in our town don't have what they need, because that house burned to the ground. And without the ladder truck, every single house around them would have been gone. And it's really sad to know that if that happened at my house, Roseville Park, my parents lived in Roseville Park, we wouldn't have had the same outcome. So I hope that you guys would consider giving them what they need.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Before you continue on, we'll take a plan, right?
Yes. We'll close the meeting and we'll take a final. Yes.
I would like to ask a question, and hopefully I'm able to do this. I know when back at workshop, I had 3 questions turned to 4 or 5, but now it's going to be 6, so I'd like to back up a little bit. And I would like to ask Councilman Lazaro, he made a statement that the DPW will now be starting to disassemble Hartman Park. Where was that ever proposed in the proposement of Hartman Park? Now we're paying DPW workers to take this apart. That's not what the proposal was. So how much money are we paying DPW workers now to do that in the park and not fulfill their obligations somewhere else? That's my question. So hopefully you can answer that. Thank you.
So it's not going to be any additional cost to the town. This is something that was discussed when we were originally proposing Hartman Park with the DPW. Our foreman was in on those talks as part of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and we wanted to, in order to save the town money, so we didn't have to pay for the removal of that equipment. It was something that we felt was a cost savings to the town to use the DPW, and it's something that we felt that in this time frame between winter and spring, that they actually could have the time to remove the old equipment. This was not going to affect their ability to perform their normal duties, that this is something they were able to incorporate into their actual job responsibilities. This was something that I thought, and as a committee, we determined to be a really good cost savings program. So, it's not something that's new. It's something that we did express that the DPW would be involved in the actual removal when I proposed it. So that's where that came from.
Okay. I was a full person that disapproved of this whole Hartman Park. And I was here at many meetings as a private citizen, and never, Councilman, did you ever say the DPW was going to disassemble Hartman Park. Never. And for you to stand here and tell us all that the DPW will still continue doing what they're doing on an everyday basis and then have time to disassemble Hartman Park, is that overtime? How is that possible?
Okay, well,
I think that's being disingenuous.
I think the tone that you're using with me
is creating here.
It's just creating a very negative atmosphere when I'm just trying to answer a simple question. So I'm explaining what I tried to communicate with everyone on council, and basically this is what was the conversation that our foreman informed us, that this was something they could incorporate into their schedule to remove that equipment and not put any additional costs on the taxpayers. I don't know what more I can share.
But again, you never share that with the public. Thank you.
I did share that with the public.
In addition, they have had time to plan this into their daily routine because they have known about this for some months, so they have been working on when it would be appropriate for them to do this. So I can guarantee it won't affect any of their daily duties.
Okay, with that.
Mayor, before we close, I believe since the fire department ladder truck and also operating budget has come up a couple times now this evening, I do want to make just a comment on that, because it was something that the finance committee discussed at length in our budget meetings, which were always very, very long and passionate meetings. So in making the decision about the funding for the operating budget of the fire department, while the amount was dropped $10,000 compared to the request of that department, one of the things we considered in looking back was the amount appropriated and the amount spent in the previous years. And there was, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, but approximately $10,000 plus left each year for the last 2 to 3 years in the fire department budget. So it was not cut any further than the level that it had been previously, while the full request, you're right, it wasn't granted at the full request, but it was not cut. So I think it's really important that it's really not cut there. And also that fancy equipment you were talking about, that turnout gear, as you said, there is money in the budget for purchasing more turnout gear. The additional $10,000 that was requested was not all going to turnout gear, but yeah, $10,000 more was requested, this is true. But the committee discussed it at length, and we felt that balancing, of course, always taxes with services, that considering there was money left on the table the last number of years, that it would be appropriate to leave it at the amount it was prior. I really wish some of this sentiment was shared earlier at our special budget meeting, or even in preparation for the introduction of the budget, which was voted on at the last meeting. Again, I think I've said this before up here, we need to be as proactive as we can as council members, especially about matters like the budget. And then as far as the ladder truck, or discussing the operating budget of the fire department, I'm on the fire committee, but we haven't met this year. So I really hope, Councilman, that we get a meeting together soon. The ladder truck will be very important to talk about, because when you look at the two main trucks that the fire department uses, there are 2005 and a 1992 or 3, I believe. And so they're not getting any younger either. And when you look at it, you say, well, there's the span of time in between a 92 and a 05 is 13 years, and then you add 13 years onto 2005. Well, here we are in 2018. So thinking about cycling out equipment, I think it is really important that we have that committee meeting, start discussing the ladder truck there. It's something that the finance committees in the past have discussed, and I know Councilman Sarno was on the finance committee last year and was the fire commissioner. He had some conversations, I believe, with the chief, right? About the ladder truck, about the possibility of a referendum on that. I know a number of you have committed in writing already to only voting on ordinances of $1 million or more as a public vote, not as a council vote. So all these are going to be really important discussions to have, but let's please be proactive up here. And also, let's try not to be divisive. If a member of the public wants to come up and make commentary about public versus private sector sounding comments by council people, that's fine, that's a member of the public. But council people, I think doing that, I think just creates a bad atmosphere. And I'm tough enough, I'm able to handle it. I'm a public school teacher, and I own that as my profession, but I don't think we need to increase divisiveness on this council.
Just Bob, a question before we adjourn. And how much can the budget change from the time of introduction to adoption?
I don't know.
Because I believe there's a threshold that can change it ever so slightly. I don't know the dollar amount or the percentage threshold. I know there is a percentage, and I think that it is important to bring it up now because it is a nominal amount, and it is important. So is it 10 basis points that we're looking at here, or I mean,
I don't know.
because I think we should do something.
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
the order
Councilman, I'll
that.
get back to you on that. Or even better yet, ask our CFO to email the mayor and council together. But I believe it is a percentage of an individual line item. The percent that I'm remembering is 10%, but I'm not 100%
So
sure.
it's 10%. Let's say hypothetically that's the case. I think we have some room here to maybe get all of council on board on maybe a budget, and that supports the fire department. And I think that in the next 2 weeks we should really think about long and hard what we want to do and have a nice fruitful discussion in the next 2 weeks.
That's part of the process for the second reading. That's correct.
Okay, at this time, we'll ask for an adjournment.
So moved, Mayor.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll break for 5 minutes, please.
McCormick?
Here.
Councilman Zarno?
Here.
Councilman Tedisco?
Here.
Council President Blumenstock? Here.
Sarah, minutes, please.
Regular and workshop minutes of the mayor and council held on March 27, 2018.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Communications, Sarah.
New Jersey State League of Municipalities, Mayor's Advisory.
Receive and file.
Union County Board of Chosen Freeholders.
Receive. Receive and file. Move on to ordinances. Public hearing on ordinance 18-04, 1805, 1806, 1807 as advertised in the Westfield Leader. Ms. Ariema, please read ordinance 1804 by title only.
Yes, Mayor, an ordinance to provide for a revised rate schedule for 2018 pursuant to 134-16 rate schedule, Article 5, industrial waste and fees in Chapter 134 sewers of the Code of the Borough of Broward for the industrial user charge provided for in 134-15.
Have you received any correspondence?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone present wish to be heard on ordinance 1804? Mr. Patterson?
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, the council. Bruce Patterson, 325 Low Avenue. Just a question. The old flow versus the new flow? Yeah, I see you have one number here, and obviously you're changing, you must be changing the old number.
Is there any, do you know the number off the top of your head?
Certainly not.
I don't.
I can email you last year's ordinance, you could look it up
Is
online.
that acceptable?
But, you know, you could call me, I would have
All
it.
right, but I mean, that seems like
Certainly
just
don't know it in my head.
a lot of times, I think you actually listed it. Okay, but anyway, I guess another question that comes out is, this is flow. I mean, we just learned about flow, BOD, and TSS. So I take the BOD and TSS are staying the same.
I don't think it was calculated. Is he still not here?
He is, but he's in the hallway.
Oh, you can hold this question on it.
I believe it's just on flow, but I didn't verify that.
Yeah, but you understand, you know, it's the three
Yes,
parts.
yes, the 3 components, correct.
Is there dollars per BOD assessment?
Mr. Nava, would you please assist us in our questioning?
Sure.
Industrial-
Tell me the question.
Okay, question. On this one, we're talking about the industrial users.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
so there is flow.
Yep.
But of course, there's 3 parts of BOD.
Right.
Yeah, what happens to those 2? Are they unchanged? Is that what it is?
No, we don't, we only charge for flow because we don't measure or sample. So we don't sample or measure BOD or solids.
Until it gets to the meter on the outskirts of town?
No, ever. We don't ever measure. We don't have any way, let's say, for example, you're a laundromat, okay? We have no way of measuring what the BOD or solids coming out of that laundromat are, so we don't sample that. We don't sample anybody. We'd have to have essentially a full-time chemist on board in order to go around and sample each non-residential user of more than 50,000 gallons of water.
What about leaving the town then? That's not sampled either?
Well, that's sampled by Rowway Valley. They charge us for it.
Okay, so we get charged for flow, BOD, and TSS, right?
We get charged by Rowway Valley for flow, BOD, and solids, yes.
But we don't do that for the industrial users. We don't like back.
We account for it by incorporating, in other words, Rowway Valley has 3 components for which they charge arbitrarily and equally. So your bill is composed of 3 components, as I said, TSS, BOD, and solids. So that bill is, as I said, it's not necessarily what the cost component is, but that's what they charge us for. So they send out people, I guess, and do samples on a regular basis. So that's the basis they charge us on. But we don't have any way to charge people on that same basis. So that the BOD and solids, probably the answer that you're looking for is this. Since Roleway Valley charges us 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for flow, BOD, and solids, we triple the flow charge that they're charging us, which is a rough way of doing it, but which is going to pick up the BOD and solids charge that we're being hit with.
Yeah, so the industrial user, it's all wrapped into the per unit price we charge the industrial user, whether they have a lot of BOD or less.
Correct. Some probably have more, than others, but we have no way to measure that sample, really.
Okay. Get your drift. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is this over to the question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Steve Greek, Long Island, Brookside Place, New Jersey. I do have a question concerning what the definition of an industrial user is. Can somebody clarify that for me?
Sure. It's not in this ordinance, it's in the ordinance that sets the charge. It is any non-residential, the definition as it is in the ordinance is any non-residential user of more than 50,000 gallons of water per year.
Okay, non-residential user.
Correct.
Okay, so would that incorporate, say, theoretically, a four-family, multiple structure with a retail in the basement?
The retail component would be a commercial, or I should say a non-residential user. The residential component is a residential user, so the residential component would not be subject to the industrial sewer user charge.
And how would they pay for any sewage use?
The residential units,
If they were rentals?
well, it doesn't matter whether they're rentals or not rentals. We do not charge residential users for the industrial sewer user charge. It's specifically defined as it has been for, I don't know how many years, 40 years probably, or perhaps more. Actually, I don't remember. I don't know whether it's more than 40 years or less than 40 years, but we've had an industrial sewer user charge for many years, from before I was the borough attorney, for example. So, I'm sorry, I lost track of your question.
Okay, what my question was that so in essence, a multi-family, say a four-family rental unit with retail in the first floor, the residential portion of it would not pay any sewer use tax.
No residential user, I'll repeat this, no residential user pays the industrial sewer user charge.
Okay, what about a tax structure on a multi-family unit, a four-family unit, let's say?
It doesn't matter what the tax structure is. No residential user pays an industrial user sewer user fee.
Okay, so then how would, with a multi-unit family, or family of multi-family unit, they pay then each individual, the owner would pay, based on what in their taxes? What, would that be incorporated just like anyone else's taxes?
Like any other residential taxpayer, what would be the part of the budget, just as the part of the budget that goes to the fire department, just as we were talking about, just as the part of the budget that goes to the DPW, that's part of the budget. So yes, it's paid as part of the real property taxes, the ad valorem taxes that are paid by any other residential property owner.
Okay, but the individual units would not be assessed this additional industrial use charge?
The individual
units.
No residential user, I'm going to repeat this, I guess again, no residential user pays an industrial user industrial sewer user charge.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 1804?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1804?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilman Disco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Ms. Ariano, please read ordinance 1805 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. An ordinance to amend Article 14, affordable housing in Chapter 106, land use of the Code of the Borough of Garwood to further address the requirements of the Fair Housing Act and the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls regarding compliance with the borough's affordable housing obligations.
Do you have any correspondence on this ordinance?
Madam Mayor.
Does anyone wish to be heard concerning ordinance 1805?
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Council, Bruce Patterson, 335 Glen Avenue. I mean, there's so many ordinances and ordinances and ordinances. I mean, I'm lost with this fair share housing, but what is this one about?
I was afraid somebody was going to ask that. There are about, I'm going to say, 6 provisions in the ordinance that clarify a few things to conform with what's called UHAC, which is the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls. So it has to do with what the bedroom mix of affordable units has to be. That's one part of it. Part of it has an affordable housing set aside for residential developments of more than 5 units. It prohibits subdivisions in order to avoid having to provide more affordable units. It clarifies what the control periods for restricted units is, which is 30 years, whether they're rental or ownership units. It clarifies what the affordable marketing requirements are and incorporates the marketing, how affordable units are to be marketed. And I guess the last is it clarifies what the monitoring and reporting requirements are in order to comply with some of the requirements of the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls.
That's the explanation. It's just
Okay.
maybe I missed a meeting, but I mean, was this discussed by the council?
Yeah, it was, well, I think I probably reported on it that these were the requirements of the court and the special master in order to get approval for the affordable housing ordinance.
So like in a workshop, you know, at the top,
Yeah.
at the top of the meeting?
Yeah, we don't generally just throw the ordinances on, so I'm sure at some point in time that I explained that that's what it was, although I don't know that I was asked specifically what all the provisions are that I just recited for you. I may have been, I'll recall one or the other.
It's like, God,
It's
like a
very
morass.
complicated.
It's
It
a morass.
is incredibly complicated. We've spent enormous amounts of time on this. It is unfortunate. I've explained as many times as I can that I do not come up with these ideas. These are not, I'm not advocating any of this.
We're not blaming you, Bob.
I'm just telling you, I mean, it's just what we have to do. We have 2 choices. We could do this, or we could be defending builders around the lawsuits, which is worse, and we'd still wind up having to do the same thing because the court would order us to do it, whether we liked it or not. So that's where we are. I do not advocate or defend the system. This is what we need to do. This is what we're doing.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, I won't shoot the messenger, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to close public hearing on ordinance 1805?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1805?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
No.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
No.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilman Tedisco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Ms. Ariano, please read ordinance 1806 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. Ordinance of the Borough of Garland in the County of Union, New Jersey, authorizing a special emergency appropriation in the amount of $140,000 for the preparation of an approved tax map and a program of revaluation of real property in, by, and for the Borough of Garland.
Have you received any correspondence?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone wish to be heard concerning 18-06?
I'll let it ride.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 1806?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1806?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Yes.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilman Tedisco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Ms. Ariano, please read ordinance 1807 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. Calendar year 2018 ordinance to establish a tax bank.
Do you have any correspondence?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone wish to be heard concerning 1807?
Good evening, Mayor Lombardo, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Bruce Patterson, 325 The cat bank. I think I probably said I was going to be asking about this the last time it was introduced, but I would like somebody to explain why we need a cat bank. I was at that budget hearing where Super Cooney, I guess, he explained the cat bank kind of roundabout, but I'd like to hear from the council as to why we need a cat bank. I guess preferably the finance chair. Thank you very much.
Pretty sure you ask this one every year. I would rather just say it's an archaic system by the state government until they change it. I'll be voting for it. But essentially, it's banking the difference, but we are not necessarily spending that money. It allows us to, in the future, if need be, if we needed to exceed the appropriations cap of 2%, because basically you could have a budget that goes low increase or even no increase, but if your appropriations are up but they're covered by the revenues coming in, and say you have a flat budget, you could still be in trouble because you are exceeding the 2% appropriations cap that the state sets, and so the cap bank allows you to go above that if you've banked this amount, and you're allowed to bank it for the 2 prior budget years. That's.
If there's an inflation factor involved somehow.
They allow you to bank the cost of living adjustment. That's the, what's the word? The rate you're talking about.
Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 1807?
Second.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1807?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
No.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
No.
Councilman Sarno.
No.
Councilman Tedisco.
Aye.
Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Mayor Lombardo.
I feel that's a good tool to have in place, even though we haven't used it, and I vote aye.
Your ordinance passed.
Ms. Ariano, read ordinance 1809 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. Introduction. An ordinance fixing the salaries and wages for Department of Public Works, the Borough of Garland, and County of Union, State of New Jersey.
Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1809?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
No.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
No.
Councilman Sarno.
No.
Councilman Tedisco.
Aye.
Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Mayor Lombardo.
Well, basically, as I indicated,
Mayor, I think you got to vote and then comment.
oh, sorry. Aye.
Supposed to comment. Now maybe comment.
Am I within my jurisdiction, Mr. Ron, to comment?
Sure.
Thank you.
All I wanted to say was, that's okay.
As I voted aye, I believe in the ordinance, but basically I thought it would come later after we pass the budget, but I know it would cost us money to pull this ordinance, so I'm going to vote aye.
It won't be done until the night of the budget.
Okay.
And then I also have to do a resolution, so there is a
Okay.
gap of time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to council standing committee reports and other reports. Please, Councilman Sarno.
Thank you, Mayor. The police department, in conjunction with the DEA, will be participating in Operation Take That on Saturday, April 28th. During the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., anyone wishing to safely dispose of expired or unwanted prescription medication can drop it off in the receptacle located in the police department lobby. Saturday, April 14th is opening day for the Garland Little League. Once again, we will start the season with an opening day parade down Center Street. The parade will commence at 9 a.m. and travel from Lincoln School to the athletic field. Motorists are advised to use alternative routes during that time. There is still space available for the inaugural Youth Academy. The Academy is open to children entering 6th through 8th grade of the upcoming year. Applications are available at the police desk at headquarters and also online at www.darwinpd.org. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Public Health, Councilman McCormick.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Streets and Roads, Council President Blumenstock.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to regular garbage pickup, the DPW performed salting and plowing operations on all borough streets and borough-maintained sidewalks during the light winter storm on April 2nd during regular working hours. Garbage pickup was completed once plowing operations were done, and all employees worked 2 hours of overtime. They also completed the chipping operations of all branches and shade trees from along all borough streets within the right-of-way that fell due to the recent winter events. Fanwood's chipper is used for all chipping operations in Garwood. The DPW also began to perform preventative maintenance on all borough-owned landscaping equipment and removed brush and debris from the brook behind 252 Myrtle Avenue. Multiple pothole repairs were also completed in about 10 different locations around the borough. That's all from my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Finance, Councilwoman Tedesco.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman.
Oh,
Thank you.
I apologize.
Next to each other on the agenda.
Twice in a row, Mayor.
I should get better glasses.
Fire, yes, I have a report, thank you. 21 incidents, 9 day calls, 17 nights, 4 alarm activities, 4 CO alarms, 2 orders of gas, 1 broken pipe in the street, 2 motor vehicle accidents, 1 fire, 1 down wires, 2 down trees, 1 storm standby. The snowstorm of March 7th caused a standby response from 16 men, spending 73 total hours and responding to 19 various calls over a 6-hour period, from falling wires, tree limbs, down to assist the police department. 10 mutual aid calls, Scotch Plains 8 hours, Linden 2 calls 10 hours, Roselle 2 calls 10 hours, Westfield 2 hours, Hillside 2 hours, Union 24 hours, Roselle Park 10 hours, Plainfield 20 hours. Total man hours 285 for all alarms. On the meeting, 20 men, 30 hours. They had drill. They had resident-style map operations on air with zero billability, refresher of basement pumps, review of recent fire. Total of 19 men, 57 total hours. Then they have here extra duty, hydrant snow removal, 18 men, 18 total hours. And the Girl Scout can recycling, 9 men and 13 hours. And can I elaborate on this without being on a report? Thank you. So as I spoke before about visiting the fire department on Sunday, and was there for over 2 hours, I was totally impressed at a group of men, and in today's day, women. I looked at the old fire trucks, and I asked where were they, because they looked brand new. These men get together and they really take care of their equipment. The firehouse is immaculate. I've been here for 30-something years. I've never been in that building till Sunday, and I'm totally impressed what goes on now, and I'm sure what went on the years before I started. The men do everything they possibly can to keep that firehouse safe. On another note, the chief and other members asked what's going on with the meeting hall where the seniors meet. I guess there's dance activities that go on there, so on and so forth. It's getting dirty, it's getting disgusting. There was other talk, but I don't need to say that. It needs cleaned up. I asked who owns the building. I thought the fire department somehow owned the building. They told me no, the town of Garwood owns it. I asked who's responsible. They said building and grounds. So I'm going to sit here and ask Councilman Lazaro to please accompany to the firehouse, and let's see what we don't know and can get straightened out. Painting, cleaning of the floor, the dirty kitchen from all the activities from the seniors, and so on and so forth. It was a big complaint, so I just want to get that clear, and that's part of my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question, Ms. Ariema. The cleaning service with the Board of Education covers the firehouse, right? Correct. Okay, so just so you know, that we have a shared service agreement with the Board of Education for cleaning of borough facilities, including this room we're in here tonight. So that is what covers the firehouse, but I'm sure Councilman Lazaro will take it when you're off anyway.
I would hope so, thank you.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds, Councilman Lazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance.
With finance.
All right, it's short. So today we met as a finance committee at 4 o'clock here and discussed the 5-year capital plan. And last year, as the chair of that committee, I drafted a rough plan. Our committee discussed it, and it was largely based at the time on what department heads recommended. We gave it out to the rest of the council as well as to the mayor. And today we focused on our recommendations for this year, which were brought up at the special budget meeting, and also looked ahead at 2019 through 2022. We will provide the rest of council the final draft once it's ready. Our committee also discussed how we are continuing to look at borough operations, to look to streamline them and increase efficiency, as we are always looking to save money. And that's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds?
Thank you. Just 2 items. The rec complex has an official start date for completion of the remediation project. Cotavoni, the contractor, is planning on starting work tomorrow with the rigorous surveillance of Falcon, our architect and designer of the specifications to make the proper changes. They provided a timeline in which the work will be completed by the end of May. As the work commences, I will provide an update. The Harbin Park Revitalization Project will start, as mentioned, a workshop with our DPW workers removing all old equipment, the base layer of mulch, and the transportation of smaller trees that are in the way of the newly installed equipment. This work by our DPW helped limit the cost of the total project. I'll have a more exact timeline for the installation and completion by the end of the week with a report at our next council meeting. And that's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Laws and license, Councilwoman Kukuro.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 4 applications for raffle licenses. The Laws and License Committee recommends the following. The adoption of resolution number 18-099 for the application of 1 on-premise merchandise raffle and on off-premise 50/50 raffle license to be held June 3rd, 2018 at the Westwood, 438 North Avenue, Garwood by Summit Animal Rescue. Also, the adoption of resolution number 18-102 for the application of 1 on-premise merchandise and 1 on-premise 50/50 raffle license. Event to be held April 26, 2018 at the Westwood, 438 North Avenue, Garwood, New Jersey by the Education Foundation of Garwood. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Recreation, Councilman Lazaro.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you.
When's the next, is the next meeting the 16th?
The next meeting was postponed until next Monday. So it was originally scheduled for this week, and now it's on Monday the 16th.
Here?
It's at the library.
At the library?
Yes.
7 o'clock?
Yes. 8, yes, 7 o'clock, yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Garwood Senior Liaison, Council President Blumenstock.
No report, Mayor. Our next meeting is April 19th.
Thank you. Library Mayor's Representative, Councilman Lazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Garwood's library programs for April include the Knitting Club every Monday and Thursday at 10:30, Kids Chess Mondays in April at 3, Book Clubs Monday, April 16th at 1, Design at STEM every Tuesday at 3 through April 24th, Adult Craft tonight at 6 p.m., Storytime every Wednesday at 10:30, Kids Craft Wednesday, April 19th at 3 p.m., Lego Thursday, April 12th and 26th at 3 p.m., Movie Time every Friday at 10 a.m., and Pause to Read Saturday, April 14th at 10 a.m. The library will launch Hoopla on April 18th. Hoopla is a digital media service that allows patrons to borrow movies, music, audiobooks, ebooks, comics, and other programs on your computer, tablet, phone, smart TV, and Amazon devices. With no waiting, titles can be streamed immediately or downloaded to phones or tablets for offline enjoyment later. Hoopla has hundreds of thousands of titles to choose from. Patrons just download the app and then use your library card number as their password, browse, and then click. Last week during spring break, the library showed the movie Ferdinand on Wednesday for young children and Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle on Thursday for older kids. Both movies were well attended and were followed by a craft. Each child got to make and showcase their art in the library display case. Local author Laura Sassy will visit Storytime on April 11th with her puppets and her new book Diva Dolores and the Opera House Mouse. And in honor of National Library Week, April 9th to April 14th, which we're currently in, the Garwood Public Library is granting amnesty on fines. During this week, there will be no fines collected for any overdue items returned during this week, no matter how long the items are overdue, so get your books in.
Okay.
All right. The Garwood Library is open Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., Fridays from 9 a.m. to 4:30, and Saturdays from 9 to 1 p.m. And that's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilor. School Board Liaison, Councilman McCormick.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Celebration of public events and holidays, Councilwoman Kukrow.
No report, Mayor. Our next meeting is next Wednesday.
Thank you. Union County Air Traffic Noise Advisory Board Representative, Councilman McCormick.
No scheduled meeting as of yet, Mayor.
Thank you. Special Review Committee, Councilwoman Tedesco.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Historical Committee, Councilwoman Tedesco.
No report, Mayor.
Parking Committee, Councilman Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. Last night, the Parking Committee met with Police Chief James Wright, OEM Director Ken Capobianco, Mayor Lombardo, President Member Kathy Bellagio, and Business Liaison Carol Carney. The goals of the meeting were to evaluate the following ordinances and ideas to address parking concerns throughout the borough. The 3-inch snow ordinance, alternate side parking, the use of emergency streets, and to go over a review of the latest from parking enforcement. It was determined after going over these issues in detail to keep the 3-inch snow ordinance and have cars off the road. As without it, our narrow streets would pose safety concerns to our first responders. Other concerns are that the roads it would make it difficult for our residents to get around town, and if we were to allow for emergency streets for parking, that would defeat the purpose of our ordinance. Furthermore, alternate side parking was determined to be a heavy lift due to communication concerns in neighboring towns having difficulty in having residents adhere to the town ordinances. Even with the recommendation of the committee not to change our ordinances, our police department is committed more than ever into insisting residents finding parking during major winter storms and will continue to do so in the future. Our parking enforcement officer is still in the compliance stage in having our residents obtain the necessary permits if he or she resides in one of our targeted parking zones. This will continue through the month of April, and it can be expected that in May that the compliance stage will end. Enforcement will begin of those found to be in violation. Additionally, we expect the markouts for our new parking signs to be completed soon and to have our parking enforcement zone officially expanded. That's all for my report, and as always, there's usually a couple questions. So.
Okay.
Or not.
I asked this last time. I'm assuming that you talked about the police department is going to help residents that don't have driveways during snow. Have you discussed specific areas? Because now that the Casale lot is, well, soon will be unavailable.
Right. We discussed that it was a lengthy discussion, and the one thing we came up with is that a few years ago, the satellite lot wasn't even available. So I think that what we're going to do is, if we have to park on front lawns, if we have to work with our neighbors, the police is a good liaison to helping that happen. To have specific zones, yes, we are always we're going to talk to maybe surrounding businesses, whether it's the Y and other places that have available blacktop that they're not using. We're also going to ask, but I don't have a magic bullet solution.
No, I know that people have thrown around the idea of the athletic center, the blacktop, obviously in the winter. We're not doing many games and everything like that, so perhaps that could be looked at as another.
I know that the schools
location. I know schools.
So let me answer that. That was discussed, and the superintendent has real concerns about having the cars leave before school opens. So because of that, they're not going to be interested in opening that lot to our residents. In terms of the athletic field, I know we discussed this last year on the parking committee before you were on this, and it was determined then no. As to the reason then, I gotta get back to that, but it wasn't no. It was discussed.
Question as well. Away from the snow issue though, we know Wendy's is going where the old Burger King was. So we had an arrangement years back, it's not really that far, 5 years ago or so, where an agreement was made between the borough and Burger King for spots for commuters. Is that on your agenda to discuss? Will that be negotiated with Wendy's?
Basically, during the discussion when Wendy was in front of us.
You mean us, the planning board?
Yes.
Okay.
The planning board. It was anticipated that the franchisee will continue that process. We're hoping that we discussed it.
Okay.
Did ShopRite come up at all? I know we have received an email about.
So there was email correspondence to all mayor and the rest of the council members about the possibility of there's 16 commuter spots, if you did not know, at the ShopRite parking lot dedicated to commuters. That was decided back in the planning board when that site was approved in the parking event. They were asking you for relief in having to provide those. We could conclude that we need every spot we can, and the committee overwhelmingly supported keeping it the way it is.
Was there a time frame on that, Joe?
That you're not, that I forwarded you an email from the owner of ShopRite. So please let me know.
Should we direct Ms. Ariana to answer?
Either if you want Tina to answer, or do you want to answer it?
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, you can answer it, please.
Just so everyone
All right,
knows.
that's good that we're answering them.
You could park there, the spot is open after 11 o'clock, and we do have a waiting list of people trying to get in there.
Was there a time frame for that?
Not that I know, no.
So they could just ask for relief from that, but there was no time frame instituted by the planning board for those parking spots to remain commuter? There was none?
No. Good questions. Anything else?
Yeah, I guess I got
Go
a
ahead.
small question. At what point in time in Garwood did all this parking become such an issue with snow removal? Was it 10 years, 3 years?
It goes back 30 years.
30 years?
It's not a new subject.
Okay.
But there's always changing situations, so.
And I think the interesting point of our conversation, and I'll say because Mayor McCarthy's here, is because one of the original 3-inch snow removal was done back in time because there was a problem getting emergency vehicles down Anchor, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but it was discussed that because the roads are so narrow, like some of these roads are only 30 feet wide. That's what Police Chief Wright was discussing. So we need every inch of that. And if we had cars on both sides of it, it would be extremely difficult for an ambulance rig or our pumper to get down there, and heaven forbid something were to happen. So.
I grew up on that street. It was, you couldn't get down.
So I think it's better to keep, even though it's a challenge, and this is not going away. Let's just make that clear. I mean, this is a fluid issue. It's going to be an ongoing issue, and it's going to have to be. We can do the best we can as a borough, right? I think that's the ultimate goal. We have a police department that's absolutely willing to partner with the residents, and that's neat. Because a lot of times you don't find that. And Even though that we had the tough ordinance, and we have a lot of multifamily houses throughout the borough, I think it's, this town realizes that it's its civic duty to kind of work together and partner up and get cars off the street, use shared driveways, coordinate with neighbors, and we think that we can do a good job going forward, utilizing Nixle and what have you, and you can expand on that.
I just wanted to say that Carol Carney, being the business representative at that meeting, the chief indicated he's very receptive to working with the businesses and their employees, so everybody can park. That's all I have.
Councilman, I definitely appreciate what you have to say there with it being an issue that's not going to go away. It's been one that's existed for decades, so I'm sure it will continue to be one until we all drive bikes instead or something like that. So one suggestion I have, though, is going into next winter in particular. I think it might be helpful in advance of that if, say, September, October, I mean, we did have that snowstorm in October a couple years back, so maybe September's the time when school's back in session and everything, get people thinking about that. Something to maybe come out as a council, as a united front about the parking situation and the snow, and you know, we try to be compassionate representatives of the people up here, I believe, but it can be also very difficult because, for example, it is not government's job to find you parking if you have a property that doesn't have a driveway, and we live in New Jersey and we have a 3-inch snow ordinance, which certainly makes sense for the safety reason you just explained. But while it's not our responsibility, we have done certain things, and businesses or these private property owners like Russo have been very much neighborly in how they've handled it to date. But if they've already, if they have things going on their property, that's private property, they have their rights too. So I think maybe we as a council, this could be an opportunity to come together, agree on the wording of maybe a literature piece that gets sent to every house saying, you know, this is a little of the background story. We appreciate the graciousness of the South Avenue property for X years. However, moving forward, we would strongly encourage you to speak with your neighbors. You're allowed to park on driveways in snow, et cetera, to maybe be a united front about that.
And it's a good idea. It's actually happening at a small scale, believe it or not, with our parking enforcement officer. I may have touched upon it last meeting, so forgive me for repeating, but they're actually going to have pamphlets that they're giving out saying, and what our officers are saying, look, we have office hours Tuesday and Thursday. Here's how to get your permit. Here's how to find me. Here's how I could write a new one out if yours is wearing down. So I think it's really neat in that we're doing some literature now, and I'm sure that if that issue were to come up 6 months from now, I think we can definitely expand upon it. And again, bring the issues up. We'll meet that and we'll discuss.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ariema, officers' reports.
Zoning Code Enforcement Officer Lindsay Spanner, monthly report for March 2018.
We have a motion to accept the officers' report.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Move on to public comment. Anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council, please step to the microphone, state your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Al Del Conte, 545 Longest Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I see the DPW had installed the LED stop signs at Spruce and West. It's nice to see them working again. The signs that were there were out of commission for a while. Hopefully that reduces the number of accidents that we have on that intersection. Now, on another note, I have a concern here in the borough parking lot here. The catch basin, when you come in the driveway, I noticed it again this evening, is settling. It is supposed to be even with the blacktop, and it's recessed about 4 inches. So I'm going to go under the assumption that the masonry work inside is deteriorating, and maybe we get a little attention before somebody falls in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Council Bruce Patterson, 325 Little Avenue. Yeah, that catch thing, somebody did bring that up, might have been Al, like, good 3-4 years ago. He brought it up. No, it was brought up. But I'm here, and I've touched upon this the last couple of months, but it has to do with the Union County hiring Ed Oatman as the county manager, and as you know, he had no experience for the job. And he didn't live in the county, and you know, there's major issues here. But what I'm bringing you up to date on, I sent an ethics complaint regarding freeholder Chris Hudak and Union County Manager Ed Oatman. I sent it to the Division of Department of Community Affairs, Local Finance Board, because oddly enough, this board actually oversees these type complaints. And what I'm bringing up, the charge that I'm bringing up, is that Ed Oatman is a trustee of Kane College, and freeholder Christopher Hudak actually is an employee of Kane College. And yet, when it came up to vote for Ed Oatman to be county manager by the freeholder, Christopher Hudak actually voted, and he should have abstained or recused, or whatever you want to say it is, but he did. So right there, there's another issue with this Ed Oatman affair as Union County manager, and I mentioned before where Amy Wagner is the deputy county manager, and she should have actually moved up the ladder, but they just leapfrogged over a lady. You know, they speak so highly about diversity, and they just pushed Ed Oatman on us. He was the chief of staff of Senator Scutari. You know, maybe 1 or 2 people working under him. He was making $60,000. Now he's making $160,000. But the trick is, you actually have to ask yourself, what that has to do with the public interest in that he lives outside the county and he didn't go through an interview process like the county statutes actually delineate. So the question here is, where's the public interest in that? It sure seems to be more personal and political. So, and Rich McCormick, the last council meeting, says, well, what should we do? And I guess the start should be a resolution saying that the public interests have been violated by this action by the Union County freeholders. And I just gave you a lot of points. So, you know, if you want to do something like that, try to put it in motion as soon as possible, because the longer this goes on, I guess the sword just gets worse and worse. And he shouldn't be where he is, and that's my complaint. There's a lot of other people that complain about it, and I think you should actually get a resolution together, put it to all the towns, and explain that the public interest was totally violated in a lot of these issues with Ed Oatman being hired as county manager. Just another short question here. On resolution 18-100, it's a resolution authorizing a change order, and it says in excess of $20,000, and it's for the rec complex, and we all know what it's about by now. But it's interesting saying in excess of 20%, and from what I understand, I guess there's some kind of laws about change orders being 20% and larger, and to me, I thought something had to go out for rebid unless there's some kind of conditions or something like that, and possibly our attorney could explain it further.
Well, that's the whole purpose of the resolution, and what all of those, if you've read the resolution, all of the conditions that are in the resolution are what are necessary in order to authorize a change order in excess of 20%. So all of those I's have been dotted and T's crossed.
Or else it would have had to be rebid.
Well, it's recorded. You have a job that's in the middle. I think rebidding it would be difficult. In other words, if not impossible. In other words, you got to move. It was bid, it started, it was opened, and now, as you know, there's
I
more
understand where
damage
we are, but I'm just saying by statute.
It's actually not statute, it's a regulation. It's in the New Jersey Administrative Code that says that if the change order is in excess of 20%, that certain documentation is required. In other words, the contractor has to explain why it is that the change order is necessary. The borough engineer has to submit a certification and also the project architect as to why it is that this change order is necessary. We're required to publish a notice, for example, after this is done. The whole purpose is sort of related to what your question is, which is so that the public understands that there's a change order that's in excess of what 20% of the initial contract is.
Thank you. I apologize. I thought it was going to be just an easy question. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Matthew, 335 Hazel Avenue. Yeah, I just want to follow up, and I support Bruce Patterson's resolution about the Oatman appointment. I really would like to see something. It took Councilwoman Tedisco a lot of courage to criticize Senator Scutari's former chief of staff on the record, that is now our county chairperson. And I really would like to see this council follow up with that and follow up with Councilwoman Tedisco's expressed disappointment with the appointment of Mr. Oatman and get a resolution out of this along the lines of what Mr. Patterson recommended. And Councilwoman Tedisco, I look to you to lead that charge. Let's get that out there. Let's be bipartisan, get a resolution on there. Let's stop this corruption. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. One other thing, mayors against illegal guns. Are there any mayors for illegal guns? No. Okay. Are there any gun owners up on the dais? Out of curiosity, anyone who would admit to it? Okay, I'm a gun owner, and I never owned a weapon until I came to Garwood, where I found that in New York, cops and criminals can have guns. That's it. Cops, criminals, and rich and famous people. Ordinary citizens could not. Okay? In New Jersey, ordinary citizens can. But there are a lot of different procedures you have to go through. Okay? I have to get 2 recommendations from people who've known me for more than 2 years. Do you know they contact my employer? They contact my employer to let them know I'm buying a gun. Okay, this is in the Constitution. I'd like to see a woman going to get an abortion, have her employer get notified, or I decide to convert from Catholicism to Protestantism, and they notify my employer. This is a constitutional right. They tell my employer, do you know Jim's buying a gun? Are you okay with that? Okay. They ask about my mental health. They do a background check on me. They check felonies, domestic violence orders, and they run my fingerprints through the National Criminal Database. Okay? And for a handgun, it's even more so. It costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. And you know who follows that? Yo-yos like me who follow the law. Some kid wants to go ahead and kill somebody, they don't care. They pick the gun up from the street. They can find it very, very easily. Okay? Guns cost a ton of money, and the process to get it going to cost a ton of money in New Jersey. So I don't know what else they're proposing, but New Jersey already has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. Okay, so I don't know what else, but I've been against illegal guns when I was in New York. I'm against illegal guns in New Jersey. I'm pretty much against illegal guns. All right, so just please, if you can express that to the mayor. All right, thank you. One final thing, on your campaign page, Mayor, and I'm not interested in the politics of it, that's not appropriate for a council meeting. You posted an article that made an allegation of financial impropriety against Councilwoman Tedisco, along the lines of she kept money from a council campaign that traditionally goes to the Garwood Democrat Club. On your campaign page, it said, please contact us if you have questions. I promptly said, thank you. How much was the money? No one got back to me. Do you know how much money this was?
Don't work offhand, but I think
Councilwoman Tedisco, do you know about how much money it was?
I prefer to speak to it at the end. And the other
But do we,
comments that
do
were
we
made
know,
during public comment.
but can you give me an idea of the order? Because otherwise it's kind of, it's an order of magnitude, $500, $5,000, $50.
Well, first of all, it's public record as to the money with
I'm just
campaigns, as I'm
asking.
sure you know. But I think, you know, I don't want to get into any politics on this dais.
I just want to know the amount. This is my comment period. I just want to know the amount.
Okay.
It's a simple question.
What you're insinuating, though, is there's an
The insinuation
accusation
is it
of
1,000?
misuse of campaign funds, and that's
1,000 or 5,000?
that
I
is
didn't say it. I'm
blatantly
asking about it.
false. So I just want to say that. That accusation, if it's read to be an accusation of me, is completely false. There's nothing inappropriate, illegal done, anything like that.
But you don't know the amount.
Anything, nah, this is not an interrogation here
So how
about
do
the
you
amount.
know?
I believe you were asking the mayor the amount.
No, I'm asking you.
I'm letting you know that it was that it's
You-
public
you-
record.
you won't answer?
As to what the amount is.
Okay.
I believe this is getting way too political. I just want to say that it's just not appropriate.
And Mayor, I contacted your campaign page, as they said, about a week ago. Is it not working, the response, or is it because I contacted it that I'm not getting a reply? Because otherwise, I would really love not to bring these, excuse me, I'm not done. I would really love not to bring these up publicly, because they're very difficult issues, and obviously they get heated. So that's why I contacted you privately. No one got back to me. So don't put out something on a Facebook page that says, contact us with questions, if you're gonna respond to Democrats but not Republicans, or people you like and not people you don't like. All right? So I just want to follow up on that. I read it, and several people in Garwood read it as an allegation of financial impropriety. Mayor, let me put this to you. Is it appropriate for Councilwoman Tedisco to continue as finance chair?
I think so.
You think so? Okay. So would it be fair to say that you don't consider this a serious allegation?
I'd rather stay away from the allegation.
Well, the allegation's out there, and you put it on your campaign page. So if you want to stay away from it, it's kind of hard. And as a citizen sitting out there, there's a an allegation of financial impropriety made against a sitting finance chairwoman. You have the power to remove that finance chairwoman and to conduct an investigation. And you're telling us, don't worry about it. All right? The final thing I just want to say, far too many votes along party lines. Far too many votes along party lines. And there are people up here who ran on bipartisanship. Everyone likes it in theory, no one likes it in practice. It is on the majority. On the cap bank, for instance. Did any of the majority Democrats reach out to the Republicans and say, I want your vote? What does it take to get it? I'll cut the cap bank 25%. Will you vote yes? Did you try to peel off one Republican? When you have the votes, you vote as a block. This is the most disciplined Democratic machine I've ever seen. You always vote as a block. Try to reach out to your Republican opposites and say, I think you're going to vote one way, I think I'm going to vote the other. What do I need to get your vote? If they give you a price that's unacceptable, then you say, that's it, I'm voting my beliefs. But did you even try? Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Kukrow, are you going to speak to the county manager item that came up? I'm only saying that because I was asked to sort of spearhead that, but I believe it went to the Laws and License Committee and you're the chair, so.
I do have information that I didn't get a chance today. I have an email with a lot of info and I'm going to pass it along to you and council.
Sure, and as I said, when that came up a couple months ago by a resident, if true, I certainly want to, look at information. I'm not going to sit up here and say I don't want to see information. So I'm open to looking at that, and if it's true, if this is pointing there, then sure, I'd be very disappointed with that. But I guess at this point, it's in our Laws and License Committee, and that's
We have it. I have
what
an
will be.
email. I've got information to start with, and I'll
Vetting
go
that.
over to both of you tomorrow.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to do it today, so.
And Mayor, just to follow up with my comment, Councilwoman Tedisco is having selective memory. Basically, she said she was disappointed by his appointment. She did not say she would be. And that took a lot of courage on your part, Councilwoman Tedisco, to defy Senator Scutari, who's now your county chairman. And I know that's difficult. So please, take that courage and spearhead this resolution. You said you were disappointed. You refused to elaborate on it. Please go ahead and follow the courage of your convictions. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing that this time, we'll move on to unfinished business, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Yes.
Councilman Torno.
Aye.
Councilman Tedisco.
Aye.
Council President Singleton.
Aye.
Ms. Ariano, do you have
No,
any?
Mayor.
Thank you. Any new business of the council this evening? Hearing none, Ms. Ariano, payment of claims?
Be resolved, the following claims as approved be and same on table or paid when properly signed and verified, and the payment of payroll is manifest and hereby confirmed and ratified.
Do I have a motion to adopt payment of claims?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick. Councilman Farnum?
Aye.
Councilman Paluso?
Aye.
Council President Blumenstock?
Aye.
Thank you. The regular meeting of the mayor and council will be held on Tuesday, April 24, 2018, in council chambers at 7:15 p.m. Workshop session will start at 7 p.m. There will be a public hearing in council chambers on ordinance number 1809 on Tuesday, April 24, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. or soon thereafter. There will be a public hearing in council chambers on the adoption of the 2018 municipal budget on Tuesday, April 24, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. or soon thereafter. I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.